So this wasn't just a small crabgrass infestation. What you're seeing here is me pulling it out by hand, bit by bit. But basically that whole green wall that you're seeing in the video, that is all crabgrass. I kept it at bay for a couple of years, just through, pulling it and kind of staying on top of it. But eventually I kind of let it get away from me, and it started setting seed. And I knew, you can see that wall of green. I knew that if it dropped seed, it would literally drop millions of seeds and I'd never get rid of it. So I had to get to work, and I knew I needed to pull it by hand. You wouldn't want to use a weed eater or a lawnmower. That would just spread the seed everywhere and make your problem 20 times worse. So just pull it all by hand. Timing was key. I had to make sure that I got in there before the seed started to mature, and so that was perfect. I got in there just before the seed was about to drop, and I pulled it very gingerly to make sure that as I pulled it, the seed was sticking on the plant and it wasn't dropping seed as I went. I did not want this on my property. I did not want this on my property. So I didn't feed it to my chickens. I didn't feed it to my goats. I didn't use it as mulch. I didn't use it for compost. I literally just tossed it in the trash and had the trash pick it up. And that's not something I ever really do. I always compost my plant material, but this was something I just wanted to get off my property. So I'm not sure exactly how big this area was, but I just went through bit by bit. I've made a lot of progress on my war against the crabgrass. You can see this boundary right here, down to about here, over to about there. So that whole area has been cleared. And then I've got this patch that goes way back here, and then this patch that goes way over here. Now, crabgrass spreads both above ground, but also below ground. This is it. This is crabgrass right here. And part of your job, if you want to eliminate crabgrass, part of your job is identifying it. So it tends to have this kind of low spreading habit. So right here you can see a little sprout here, and it kind of comes out, lays flat on the ground like this, and then it runs. As it runs, it'll start to put out roots along these stems, and those roots will then go down into the ground and form a new crown. And in that way, it'll just start establishing itself in a wider and wider patch. So by contrast, these are bunch grasses here. And you can see when I pull them up, it's just one little growing node there, one little crown basically. Whereas with crabgrass, there'll basically be a little knot that's a growing node. And those growing nodes tend to be relatively deep in the soil. So if I pull this up, so here's this little runner right here. Like I said, the rhizome itself, the growing node, tends to be pretty deep. And you can see how it spreads underground. Okay, there we go. So it runs both above ground and underground. So there's the underground runner, and you can see the growing nodes coming off of it. And then the above ground growing node here. And then over time, as these grow out, they'll start putting out roots from these nodes, and they'll create more of these underground growing nodes that'll send roots horizontally underground, and then growing points will start to arise along that runner underground. I was able to pull all the runners above ground, but that left all the runners below ground. And so if you don't tear out those runners, then you're just going to have crabgrass just spring up again in the coming days. So I took a hay fork and I jabbed it underground, and I broke up the roots as much as possible. And that could be a bad thing. If you go and break up the roots, then you may have, hundreds and hundreds of rhizomes everywhere that just start to send grass up again, and you'll just have a giant mat of crabgrass. But I had another trick up my sleeve, and I flame weeded. Me and my buddy Carlos and my buddy Ruben, we flame weeded. So all those little bits of rhizome that I pulled up to the surface with the hay fork, we burned all those off. All right, we are flame weeding. Ruben's got the torch. Carlos is on the water. We've been spraying the whole area down to make sure that the whole perimeter is nice and wet. And then we're spraying the hot stuff after Ruben gets done. Spraying down the wood chips. I'm feeling pretty safe, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking. What do you think, Carlos? You feeling okay? Feeling okay about this? Yeah, I think we're okay. I think we're okay.
And that also had the benefit of destroying as many seeds as possible that were laying on top of the ground. After that, another trick up my sleeve. I laid down a black silage tarp for about a year. Well, I meant to do it for a year. And I ended up, it was almost 2 years that it was there. And that ended up being a good thing because, you know, the black silage tarp, basically any germination that happens that gets above ground, the silage tarp blocks out all the light so that the plant can't actually live and it dies. Okay.
This is day 2 of flame weeding this crabgrass. And I went through today with a hay fork, pulled up a bunch of these roots, and I've been burning them off. And then I'm going to tarp this and try and make sure that any roots that stick around aren't going to get any sunlight. So basically, I'm just trying to beat these things to a bloody pulp, burn out any energy that they have, and hopefully a bunch of these end up dying off because they don't have enough energy to resprout. Another tricky thing is that the crabgrass has run all the way to these boundaries here. And so there's really a wide circumference that we're going to have to monitor to make sure that we're getting all the crabgrass and make sure it doesn't continue to run. So the only thing we can do is keep working on it and try and exhaust the energy as best we can. So this is the black plastic, the silage tarp. So I'm going to lay this out and cross my fingers for the next few days. This is the update. This is where I'm finishing this weekend. I got a bunch of other things I need to do, but I have put the occultation tarp down. Any grass that starts coming up will hopefully not have any light to grow by, and will just not have any energy and will hopefully die. Let's check this out. It's been not quite a week since I put this cover on. Cricket or something. So this is definitely growing. Not doing well. Oh, it got burned. Not seeing too much action down here. Now, here's one. So that is a green shoot that is turning yellow because of lack of light. So that's what we want to see right there. Another example where it's starting to grow but not getting any light. Okay. So far so good, I'd say. And right here, all these little shoots coming up. That's like a nightmare. All that crabgrass would just start running if it were able to get light, but you can see all these little shoots have no color to them. They're looking for light and cannot find it.
Now, around the edges, it could have sent that energy, you know, that the crabgrass that's getting sunlight around the edges could send that energy into the roots underneath the silage tarp. So the fact that I broke up the roots with the hay fork was really a good thing, because that meant that the green crabgrass outside the silage tarp couldn't send its energy to the interior roots underneath the silage tarp and actually keep them alive. It wasn't without its problems. So first of all, some rodents ate holes into the tarp, and that's a bummer. Now we have some microplastics on property because of the rodent pressure. There's also that little green chestnut tree that you see there. That did not make it through this process, unfortunately. That's a bummer because it was an American chestnut, which is endangered. But when we pulled that tarp up, it was amazing. The roots were all gone. They'd used up all their stored energy, and basically there was no more work left to do for any of the ground underneath the tarp. After I pulled the tarp off, I just let the ground sit there, and I just wanted to see, is there any new growth that's going to appear here? Again, it's about 1.5 years, not quite 2 years. And in that, after that 1.5 to 2 years, after we pulled the tarp off, no new growth. So we had basically completely killed that crabgrass patch, which is amazing, right? But I'm not going to pretend like it's 100% gone, because there are a couple little places where I do still see some crabgrass break through from time to time. And so it's not the end of the world, because I can tell that almost all the roots are gone, almost all the rhizomes are gone. And any new growth that comes out, I just chase the rhizomes back down into the ground, and I try to find what root cluster they're coming from.
So every day I come out here and I check to see if any rhizomous grass is coming up. So right here, right there, rhizomous grass. And instead of just pulling it, I'll go ahead and kind of step back into, I'll try and step back as deep into the mulch as I can to find as many roots as I can. Now these are tiny and spindly, so I know it's pretty weak. Let's see, where's this one coming from? Yeah, that's pretty weak. And I've just been leaving these on top of the soil, on top of the wood chips here, and I'm finding that they're not rooting or anything. They just dry up and they die. So that's all I do, just toss them on top of the wood chips. And then we look for another one. Slowly over time, we'll exhaust the roots. It won't have any more energy, and then the plant dies.
All right, and it, I don't sit there for 20 minutes or anything. I just kind of chase it back and see if I can, reach back to the root cluster that's sending up the shoots. And usually I'll pull off a little bit, and that's great. But sometimes you'll pull that rhizome back and you'll actually find a cluster of roots, and that's really golden.
This was the gift that kept on giving. I found this little green shoot coming up, and I thought, okay, let me pull this green shoot out and I will follow it wherever it leads. I had time to sit here and pull, and I was able to get all these roots out for this crabgrass. So nice big chunk of roots, and that should really reduce the crabgrass pressure here. Ultimately, the goal is to exhaust the roots. If you keep everything out of the sun so that it can't photosynthesize, and you keep pulling plant matter out, you're pulling out energy. All this is energy. And by pulling out energy and preventing it from reaching the sun, you're basically starving the plant, and over time, those rhizomes will die.
There's only so many of those clusters that are underground, and anytime you pull out a big cluster of rhizomous roots, you're really doing a lot of damage to the plant. Now, this was all done on my property, which is pretty well separated from other properties, and we don't have the issue of being surrounded by crabgrass. Basically, this is a very isolated infestation. And so I know that if you're in the middle of suburbia and you have people growing Bermuda grass on all sides or whatever, you're going to have ongoing crabgrass battles. And I don't really have any great recommendations for that situation, other than to maybe try some rhizome barriers. And that can kind of separate you from the rest of your neighbors. And then you might be able to kind of tackle that battle on your own property once you've blocked off the neighbors' running grasses. If that's you, I really wish you the best of luck. Like I said, the rhizome barrier is really the main suggestion that I have for you with that. But I don't really have experience defeating crabgrass when you're literally surrounded by it. So, take the ideas that we've discussed here, see if some of this works for you, and I really hope it does. But if you do have an isolated infestation, then this strategy that I talked about here really does work, and I'm very, very glad to have the crabgrass effectively eliminated. Like, I just have to go around periodically, a couple times a week, and I look for these little bits of crabgrass that are growing up, but they're few and far between. And if I just keep at it, all those little bits are going to lead me back to those root clusters, and I can dig those out and eliminate them. And over time, I really will have defeated this crabgrass infestation. So hopefully that's interesting and useful for you guys. And I wish you guys the best of luck in battling your crabgrass. Get on it, guys, and best wishes.